So Bangalore is having, heavy rain. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. And I think a lot of flooding in Bangalore. I think I was reading somewhere that after 90 years, this much of rain has come to Bangalore.
Yes, I hope it's better now in Bangalore though.
Yeah, it hasn't rained today, so I hope things will become better.
Like we have more people joining at the same time. Okay. Gnana Lakshmi is also here.
Okay, Dhruv, we have Gnana Lakshmi. Why don't we start, please?
All right, we have yes. We are good to start.
Hey folks, should I share my screen?
All right, just in a minute we'll get started here.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So, hello everyone. Welcome to another interesting workshop from IBC 2.0 Continuum. I'm Dhruv. I'll be your host for today. So, IBC 2.0 is the second edition of a massive 5-year agenda, and we are enabling the largest blockchain ecosystem initiative in India. We have agendas that cover the entire spectrum, from workshops to hackathons and a startup pitch competition to government-led conferences. Now, today's workshop is sponsored by Chingari. Now, if you have been active on social media, Chingari needs no introduction. It's India's best short video app. Chingari is one of its kind social media content platform from India, which is rapidly growing in the Web3 space. Chingari is built on Solana, which is an L1 blockchain, and is changing the way the world consumes short content. In this workshop, we will be discussing and learning about L1 chains and the Web3 ecosystem in a very beginner-friendly approach. So to take us through these interesting concepts of blockchain development and Web3 ecosystem, we have with us Gnana Lakshmi and Anushank Dagar. Gnana Lakshmi is the Chief Blockchain Officer at Eternal with 8+ years of experience in the emerging technologies domain. Anushank is a project manager and has worked on multiple projects like Blackbug, there's Imbibe, and Things PNC. So he is passionate about blockchain, Web3, and the metaverse. So without further ado, let's dive into blockchain development. Over to you guys.
Awesome. I have content to cover like basics of Web3 and can also talk about just like a very introductory sort of basically introduction to like the various L1s that exist. And then Anushank will take over and talk about some use cases and shed some light on the kind of problem that can be solved using Web3, right? That's one of the larger big
recording in progress.
That they're asking that why blockchain and where does it serve its purpose, right? So I'll try to keep it as short as possible, perhaps 25 to 30 minutes. So Anushank gets a bit of time to talk about the real life use cases. So for those of you who are fairly new to blockchain and the entire Web3 ecosystem, I just want to have an understanding of where do you stand in the blockchain space? Like, just give me a 1 if you are a complete beginner, and a 5 if you have built applications and have worked with protocols. If all of you could just put in a chat a number that you think you can most relate to. 1 for very like super beginners, and 5 for those who have built applications and have some good knowledge about protocols, etc. Okay, I see some responses coming. There's a 1. What about others? If you can please put a number on the chat. Accordingly, I can, modify or sort of navigate through my content. Okay, I have 2 1s, a 5, 2 5s. Okay. Are there, what about others on the call? I know that there are 48 of you, so I'm hoping to see more numbers. anything that you can relate to. Okay, there's a 2, there's a 5. Okay, we have lots of 5s, so that's interesting. Okay, 2.5 somewhere in the middle. Okay. Okay, lots more 5s. Okay, so for the 5s, this might be like super basic, but please bear with me because this is going to be a very beginner friendly session. I am hoping that the large landscape is between 1 and 3, and if you're between 1 and 3, some of this could make sense to you as an absolute beginner, and some of this could be just a refresher, right? So today's sort of talk is going to be about like a very introduction to Web3 blockchain sort of ecosystem. And your speaker is me. My name is Gnana Lakshmi. I'm also popularly known as Gyan. I'm a founding member of a community called the Phoenix Guild, where our mission and vision is to onboard the next million female and non-binary builders in Web3. How do we do this? We do this by doing a lot of workshops, tech talks, hacker houses. We just finished our first ever female hacker house in the entire India, which had over 60 builders participating and about 6 amazing projects coming out of that. In today's talk, I'm going to talk about why blockchain and why now, what is blockchain and how does it work, and a little bit about what are the different career opportunities that you could potentially find in this space, right? This is a July sort of 2021 Gartner image. There's also a similar image that you can find for 2022. This is called a hype cycle image, and you find this hype cycle for a lot of different technology, emerging technologies largely, right? Now, what does this hype cycle indicate, right? The hype cycle indicates that how would a technology perform, right? And what is all the hype about this technology? Now, if you see in this hype cycle, you can see the periods of time that this technology will evolve. Less than 2 years, some will reach plateau in 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, greater than 10 years, and become obsolete before plateau. So, why is this hype cycle important in today's context? Is because uh, a lot of times we have to look at when is the peak of inflated expectations and when is the trough of disillusionment, right? What this essentially means is that peak of inflated expectations is when most amount there are lots of expectation in the market about this particular technology, right? And after this is when the tech starts going down, right? It's not necessarily from an economic perspective, but also there is a sort of slow saturation of what are the different innovations that you can do in this technology. During this trough of disillusionment is when you have the most advantage to learn this technology and figure out solutions that can onboard the next billion users. From this trough of disillusionment, you keep moving upwards to the slope of enlightenment, right? Where you see a growth in this technology. A lot of people start adopting it. There's a mass adoption. People are starting to use it, etc. Right? Now, this trough of disillusionment from this Gartner source and an earlier Gartner source as well, 2020 source, that between the years largely 2019 to 2024 or 2025, there's going to be this trough of disillusionment. What this means is that for you as developers, for you as builders, for you as people looking for opportunities in the Web3 space, these years are the best time to learn about this technology and upskill yourself, because as this technology will reach the slope of enlightenment, you will get such niche skills, right? Because you would already have learned about this technology. Your skills and your participation in this technology will become so important that you will become a niche asset in the whole globe, right? So you will have access to a lot of opportunities, you will have access to a lot of work, and you will be treated super special, right? And that is why that's my idea of showing this graph, that this is absolutely the right time for you to learn about blockchain as we slowly reach the slope of enlightenment. Here are just some statistics. I think we are all familiar now that it's not just public goods or open source projects that are going to be utilizing blockchain. Enterprises as well will start integrating blockchain applications. They will start integrating with decentralized services, and largely because the incentive model, both in terms of having more users on board and also in terms of creating more decentralization and transparency, are much higher if you integrate decentralized applications and services, right? Now let's go to a quick introduction. I'm going to run through this very quickly because most of you already are fives, right? So what is Web3 and how did this kind of come about? The idea of Web3 is a sort of describes a sort of evolution of the entire web space. In Web 1.0, we used to largely have a static ecosystem where we could just read information. In Web 2.0, we started interacting with this information. In Web 2.5, we have a mix of AI, ML, a lot of interesting and emerging technologies. Web 3.0 is an ecosystem where we are looking at decentralization, bringing in transparency and immutability, right? Why is this decentralization important, right? Uh, because nowadays we are living in a world of internet where everybody is connected to everyone, right? And we are constantly exchanging value online. But in order to exchange this value, instead of trusting the other person with whom we are exchanging values, this value could be what? This value could be content, this value could be money, this value could be in the form of cryptocurrencies, this value could be in the form of services, right? In order to provide these services or consume these services online, we are always using third parties to create this trust, right? You don't directly trust the service. Like you don't directly trust the hotels to deliver food. So you use Zomato or Swiggy. You don't directly trust the cab drivers, the taxi drivers to, bring a cab to you on time. So you trust Uber, Ola, Rapido, or whatever, right? So we use these third parties to create trust. However, one of the biggest things that is missing in the whole Web3 space, or in the whole Web 2.5 space, rather, that's the better way to word it, is that, and why we use these third party services, right? Why do we need these third party services? Because trust is a missing piece, right? That is there in today's world. When you think of applications that you don't want to use, suppose you download some application on your phone and you're not sure whether you should be using that application or not, it's because you don't trust that application, right? It's because you don't trust what this application will do. And this is why we are trying to bring the idea of decentralization and transparency, right? Let's take a look at this with a very simple example. When you go to say buy a coffee, right, in your traditional ecosystem, what you're doing is you're taking your card, or you take your bank card, you go and go to the coffee shop, you ask for a coffee, and the coffee shop in turn asks your bank, right, to check their bank records, which is in the form of ledgers, etc. The bank will check the records and it will approve whether you have X amount of balance within your card to pay for the coffee. And if all is well, your transaction processes successfully, you get your piece of coffee, right? Here is an additional extra chocolate cookie with that. But can we now, the problem with this entire ecosystem sort of began in, say, around 2008, when there was a huge financial crisis and investment banks. It started in the United States of America, where investment banks sort of started crashing, and banks shut down and refused to pay back to their customers, because they are centralized agencies. That is, they, when you go to a bank and deposit your money, the bank is the custody, is holding the custody of your money, right? If the bank shuts down, they have invested this money in something else and they shut down due to whatever reasons like bankruptcy, etc. They don't necessarily have to pay you back, because it's like telling somebody, right, you hold my money and keep it safe, right? If their house is flooded and your money is drowned, it's really, you can't do anything about it, right? Whereas, think of this idea, right? However silly it may seem, technology seems to have tried to solve this problem. What if you distribute your money to a lot of people across the houses, right? And not everybody lives in, and hopefully not everybody lives in, flood prone areas. So what you're ensuring is that you are ensuring that your money is not just in like one single entity. In fact, you are ensuring that you're distributing it in such a way that you have access to it whenever you need, and it's not all gone in one time, right? It's a rough analogy. I know it's not the best analogy, but it is something that establishes the importance of having decentralization, right? So this is where blockchain comes into the picture, where when you see this third party operation happening, can you remove this third party entirely? And instead of this third party being your establishing trust for you, can you use code? Can you use programming to establish this trust for you? And this programming is what blockchain, the network, facilitates for you, right? So instead of keeping it at one central agency, what you are doing is you are creating a network, right? Like instead of keeping it at one person's house, you're distributing to multiple people's house who are all a part of a network that you're familiar with. And this particular network is facilitating this decentralization by creating the trust factor for you, right? So this entire network that does this job of this bank approving, storing your ledger, approving your transaction. Instead of this entire bank that is in the middle, you replace this with your blockchain network that is doing the disintermediation for you. So what happens when you have a blockchain network, right? You pay for something through cryptocurrencies. The validation that you actually own those cryptocurrencies happens on this decentralized network. It's not happening just at one server, or it's not being done by just one person. This entire group of people who are a part of this network are doing this validation. The moment they validate, it's all good to go and you get your coffee, right? Now, how did it all start? Like I mentioned, in 2008, there was a huge financial crisis. Investment banks, intermediaries, third parties, many of them went bankrupt. People lost a lot of money. And that's when in 2009, one person or a group of people, which is still unknown, called Satoshi Nakamoto, published a paper called Bitcoin, a peer to peer electronic cash system. Well, digital payments exist in today's day and age as well, right? You can pay through Paytm, you can pay through UPIs. So, what was different about this, right? This paper described a specific type of currency called cryptocurrency, which is based on the principles of cryptography, right? Cryptography uses encryption, that is being able to hide a message, and decryption, that is revealing the message, in order to avoid attackers, right, from revealing the sensitive information, etc. So this cryptography, which is largely revolves around encryption and decryption, this cryptocurrency or this digital currency, new currency that Satoshi Nakamoto described in the paper, actually uses cryptography to ensure privacy preservation, right? And to ensure that you can transfer this money from one entity on the network to another entity on the network. And all this validation, whether this particular entity holds this cryptocurrency or not, is being done at the network level. In 2010, there was a slice of pizza that was bought for worth 10,000 BTC, or I think a whole pizza. But of course, today the price is like super high. How does the blockchain work, right? Since most of you are familiar, I'm going to largely skip this part, but think of this as all the transactions that you're doing, right? You are recording all of these transactions that are happening on this network in a common ledger like this, right? Which is shared amongst everyone who is a part of the network. So an example that you can see here, as think of think of a village where there are a lot of residents, right? All of these residents are part of the same network, that is part of the village, right? And all the transactions that are happening amongst the residents, right, For example, somebody may want to go to a medical store, somebody may want to take their dog to a veterinary clinic, somebody may want to, buy things from a grocery store, right? All of these are transactions that are happening on the village. All of these transactions in the form, now this village is ideally your blockchain network. The residents are nodes or peers on that network who are performing the transactions with each other, and all of these transactions are stored in a shared ledger, right? The record of these transactions are stored in a shared ledger to create transparency amongst that network, and in order to maintain all the transaction information so that you can go back and verify as to what transactions happened in the past. So the database that you think of that is getting created is in a chronological order, that is one transaction after the other. And the idea of again this emphasizing the decentralization bit, right? If all of these transactions are controlled by a single accountant or a single person, then you are entirely dependent on this person to give you all the correct information, right? Now, this person can go on a vacation, then you don't have anything. This is like, think of your servers going down. This person can fall sick. This person could be a thief. This person could think of manipulating, or this person can keep asking you to pay more and more and more for information every time you want to verify, right? So these are some of the problems that could potentially be into picture when you have a centralized entity, right? And this is why you move from centralization to distributed ecosystems. That is, instead of having information is in just one place, everybody who's a part of the village, right? Think of this network as your village. Everybody who's a part of the network will be having this ledger with them, right? So instead of one person having the ledger and being able to manipulate it, this ledger is the same copy of the ledger is distributed across the ecosystem. So whenever you are trying to change something, you can only manipulate in your local copy, right? Whereas you can't go and manipulate in everyone's local copy. And this is where you get immutability, that is, you are unable to change information that is there on chain, as well as transparency, because on public blockchains, a type of blockchain, all the information, all the transactions are transparently available to everyone. How does it work, and what are a couple of building blocks that make up this entire blockchain network, right? And this entire system of how one can transact over blockchain networks. So you have the concept of distributed systems, as we just saw. Instead of having a centralized agency, you distribute this information across the network. Cryptography used to create encryption and decryption in the system. Peer-to-peer networks, right? Instead of talking to one centralized person, you're talking to your peers to get the information. And then last but not the least, there is a concept of consensus algorithms, which determines how transactions should be added to the ledger. What should be the algorithm in which you should pick up transactions and add them to the ledger? Because multiple people will be doing transactions at the same time on the network, right? But there must be an algorithm to choose the transactions and add them in an order to the ledger. And that is what consensus algorithms decide. So this is a simple sort of the same example replicated in the blockchain world, right? All the transactions that happen on the blockchain are collected and there is a block that is created out of this. There is consensus algorithms behind which block should be added to the blockchain, right? And once the block is added, the block is not just added as is. There is a hash that is created out of that block data in the block using cryptography. And once this is created, it is added onto the blockchain. So blockchain is a chain of blocks, each of which consists of a bunch of transactions that are happening on the network. And once you add this on the blockchain, you get this chain of blocks. Once this is published, right, just like a news is published, you can go and search for these blocks and find the information within the blocks, just like how you can find public blogs, public news. So some of the concepts here that quickly to summarize the basics, right? that you have a public ledger that is accessible to everyone. It's a distributed ecosystem, so you don't have a centralized agency where you are, you're basically putting all your data in one place. Again, it is decentralized in nature, wherein you have a consensus algorithm or a protocol that decides how information should be added onto the ledger. And last but not the least, because of cryptographic principles, and because the blockchain in itself keeps growing, it's hard to tamper with data that is there on the blockchain. I'll let this slide slip because I know that the use cases are going to be covered, right? So let's skip that and go to the next slide, which is career opportunities, right? If you see this blockchain wheel of opportunities, it is actually a slightly older one because I feel like there are so many more career options now in the blockchain space, right? But this is just to give an idea of what exists, right? You have opportunities for developers, engineers, information security analysts, project managers, research analysts, technical recruiters, data scientists, marketing designers, legal, quality engineers, and whatnot, right? So this wheel of opportunities represents that even though we are in a trove of disillusionment right now and trying to figure out what is the best way to attract mass adoption of this technology, this is where a lot of people are building solutions, people are trying to solve the problems. The technology is almost at a bleeding edge where you are building the next big products for the next big billion users, right? So there is lot of opportunities both in terms of freelance gigs, both in terms of uh, you know um, I would say full-time roles, if you want to do internships, right? And also the industry is fairly sort of open-minded to take in new people, to take in freshers, because the technology in itself is new, right? So nobody asks you for like 100 years of experience, right? So that's something interesting that you can definitely look at. And yeah, what next? Last but not the least, the community that we run, we, like I mentioned, we constantly run workshops, we do a lot of tech talks, we do a lot of events. So you can join us, you can follow us. Even though we are focused on building a community to encourage more female and non-binary builders, all of our educational sessions and workshops are open to everyone, right? Because education is not gender specific and we understand that. So feel free to join our Telegram or our Twitter. We have a bunch of opportunities that are coming up just in this month and the next one. So if you're interested to learn, if you're interested to just join, that would be great. That's pretty much it from me. I'm gonna hand it over to the next speakers so they have enough time to kind of talk about the different use cases and share with you all on yeah, what's happening in the space. So Anushank, over to you.
Sure, Lakshmi. Thanks a lot for the session. It was good. I don't think I have that much structure into my slides and my thoughts, but I'll try to do my best. A little, my slides are all over the place, but still, yeah, I'll share my screen.
Sure. Because just in the interest of time, I'd not cover too many layer ones or layer twos, but let me share some links on popular layer ones, Ethereum and Solana. I think it would be good to get a basic understanding of that as well. I want to show the browser, but I don't want to overwhelm people right now. So I'm going to share some links that would be informative. And then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me later. Awesome. Thanks, Anusha. Over to you. Hey, Anushank, are you sharing your screen? Okay. Good.
Yeah. Sorry, actually my internet broke off.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, so let me show this. Cool. Give me a second. This here. Cool. Sure. Let me minimize this. Cool. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, I'm able to see it.
Sure. So yeah. See, starting with what L1s are, right? So like Lakshmi said, obviously it's all about transaction management and managing the integrity of the transactions. But I just want to touch a little bit on the products of these L1s before diving into the use cases. So we hear about these buzzwords: NFTs, DAOs, governance, token, ERC-115. So see, like these blockchains, consider them as products. So now these products have feature. So and those features are actually these protocols that they have. So now it is up to us, the builders, the coders, to use those features that these products provide and see, okay, what are the use cases that we can build from these features. So that's where you will see a different chains. So first of all, like, why are there so many different chains, right? So there are so many different chains because all of the different chains provide differentiated features, depending on whether you want integrity, you want speed of transaction, do you want less gas fees. So it's all about that, okay, which blockchain provides what feature and what feature is actually usable to solve for my use case. So this is just an overview of how to think about these chains and how to take into account that, okay, if I'm trying to solve for problem A, then what chain is really suitable for me. So this is just a way of thinking that, okay, how you should evaluate chains. If you have a problem in mind, then look for that, okay, what are the chains that support or basically enhance my use case. I want transaction speed, I want integrity, and that's how you should look at L1s and L2s, and see how it fits. So that was just my two thoughts on how you should evaluate blockchains and why there are different blockchains, because there are different features, and we use those features to build for use cases. Okay, cool. So let me move. Yeah. So as of now, this is what I think that Web3 is affecting. What are the key areas that the Web3 is affecting? Is privacy. We'll dive deep in all of these. What are the use cases that you can solve by taking advantages or of these areas. But what Web3 is affecting is privacy, transparency, interoperability, identity management, composability, arts and culture, token economy, and decentralized finance. While we are all familiar with decentralized finance, that's why I kept it in the last, because it's the most trending use case and everyone kind of know about it. I'll start with privacy to begin with. So privacy, you can take privacy, look at privacy from a perspective that, okay, if this chain, all of this blockchain is public and transparent, so that does not necessarily play out to the advantages all the time, because you might not want XYZ person to actually go and see that, okay, this person ABC has actually ordered bedsheet from Flipkart, assuming that Flipkart comes on chain, or this person XYZ is diagnosed with diabetes. So you don't want that kind of information to really get into hands of anyone, because that's a private information you want. But before even going into that, okay, yes, I don't want, that's why I am on Web2 products, that, okay, they deliver me that, okay, this is a server, it's only accessible to me, they manage the security on my part. So why do I move to Web3? So why do you move to Web3 for the supply chain, healthcare, and insurance? Is simply because you can't always rely on the companies to manage data for you. I have a personal example with respect to healthcare. So, a few years back, my dad was diagnosed, with some heart condition. And after 3 years, when we went back to the hospital, they said that, hey, our server vendor changed, and now we don't have any, old information on the patients. And hence, all the health records for my dad was lost. And we were clueless that, okay, now how do we, take this forward? Similar to supply chain. So let's say, you hear these stories on LinkedIn every day that I ordered, I basically booked a porter from A to B and they didn't deliver. And, where is my, stuff? And that is why you need blockchain. That, okay, it's not in some, black box server where, every information is being managed. It's actually on chain, which cannot be changed, because I've seen examples of companies who change the data in their backend to support their claims. ABC will go that, hey, you lost, or basically you delivered my, bed maybe after 30 days. What people do in these companies, they change that data and show that, their thing was delivered in 3 days. Now that is unethical. And, it's hard to believe, but these practices are in motion right now in the industry, in the Web2 industry. So that is why you ideally want to move, away from that single party trust to a more distributed trust. And that is where basically blockchain comes in, and privacy is required, because obviously this is sensitive data that you want to hold on to. So these are the use cases where private blockchains, can come into picture. This moving on. So next I want to talk about is transparency. So now that we know that, okay, all these transactions are on chain, and if anyone of you had tried to go back on Etherscan or Solscan or BSC scan and try to put together some information, then you would know the pain, that how difficult it is to really understand that, okay, what is really going on in this blockchain. Like, I understand it's transparent, but I can't understand jack shit, because it's all also cryptic. So that is where, the builders come into the picture, and this is an opportunity for us to really build technologies to aggregate this data, to make sense of this data. That's where, the first point comes in, that, okay, can I organize all the information and transactions, let's say, of some particular NFT project, or a particular, exchange contract, and hence provide like a sequential, ledger, rather than having that, okay, A to B, B to C, and it gets confusing, it gets hard to track. So can we really read these transactions and arrange it in a manner that it's consumable? It's not data, it's information. Can we do that? So that's the opportunity for us. Second is on-chain insights. Now, obviously, so much data is available to the public, and obviously, there are things that we can build on. So you see in Web2 companies, credit companies, of course, try to do modeling based on that. Okay, if this person XYZ interacted with ABC website, or calls ABC people, or receives XYZ messages, then this should be the credit score for the person based on their activity, right? So now all of this transactions, the protocols they interacted with, the money they exchanged, are on chain. So there's a huge opportunity, for AI ML players to come in and really make sense of this data and model it in such a way that different companies can use this data to provide services. Third is obviously notification and events layer. Now, because all of this data is public, is on chain, so, you really can, get into the nitty gritties and understand. Let's say I give you a use case. Let's say I want to know, as soon as an NFT is sold. So can I really, build a notification layer that, okay, whenever this NFT is sold, notify me, or whenever this NFT is put on buy, notify me, or if X person sends X money to Y, then notify me. So these are the interesting notifications, and events layer that you can build on this data, that, okay, whenever this transaction happens, give notification to XYZ wallet. So these are the, use cases which, transparency brings into the picture for builders to build on and help the users. Third is obviously interoperability. So we all know about token bridges, right? So let's say you have some, money on Ethereum chain. So now it's useless, really, right? If let's say if there's a protocol that you want to interact with and it's on Solana, so it's really useless what money you hold on Ethereum until and unless you have a method to move that money from Ethereum to Solana. And that's why it's a use case for DeFi. That's why there are many companies that have come on for token bridges. But I believe that there's room for innovation, as we see the data hacks and the money hacks that happens on these token bridges, really like a recent one that happened on the Solana. But the other interesting use case of bridge, which is yet to come into picture, is data bridges, right? So as we move on, in blockchain, technology transition, we will eventually move on from these DeFi use cases to social use cases, to supply chain use cases, to reputation management, to identity management. And how do you really transfer your identity and reputation or your data, from Ethereum blockchain to Solana blockchain? So I think that is one opportunity that builders really have to really figure out, okay, that right now there are XYZ data protocols on Solana and there are XYZ data protocols on Ethereum. So how can I make these compatible? Because that is going to be the a heavy use case going forward, according to me. So this is a little bit on cross chain verification, and obviously, like I talked before, about health records, right? So if let's say central entity holds your health record, then it's really difficult to convince them and say that, hey, transfer this health record to from Apollo to Medanta, because they say that, hey, we are liable for this information, we can't share it. But it's really bad for the user at the end, right? Why can't you just transfer my health records? And hence, interoperability in terms of health record is also important. Third, because I have been a product manager in education space, so I feel very deeply about it. Because education is not a 1 day or a 2 day or a 1 year gig. We go through education for more than 20 years in our life, and we change schools, we change online courses. There's Byju's, there's an academy, there's Mbibe, there's so many, like Topper, there's so many companies that provide these educational services, and as a user you generally tend to take more than one services. But what happens to the data that was there with the previous vendor? So if you can transfer that data, that okay, ABC person was good in probability in class 9th, and he was taking preparation on, let's say, an academy. Now let's say they move to Topper. Now Topper starts afresh. Topper doesn't know that this kid is bad at probability, this kid is bad at this or that, or good at this. So having that data with the user, and giving that power to the user, that hey, this is your data, you practice with me, good, now you can take this data and go to XYZ and still maintain your educational flow. So that is I'm something very passionate on that. Okay, can we take this education on chain so that it's interoperable? Then obviously receipt based trust or wrap token is a very prominent use case in DeFi. That you take collateralized loans, you take loan and you get a wrap token, which you can really use at n number of places. So that is the interoperability part, with respect to growing the ecosystem, that it's not just in isolation you're interacting with one service and really you can't do anything. It's basically you interacted with that, and that receipt of interaction holds value, and which you can show anywhere and take benefits of it, right? Let's say if I deposited 1 million in Aave protocol, then they give me a receipt for it, and hence I have some trust with me that okay, and I can go to a third vendor and say that, hey, you can see that I have 1 million tokens, Ethereum tokens or whatever in Aave, and hence I want to take loan on that protocol and take money from you for XYZ reasons. So that's about DeFi and building ecosystem. And lastly, obviously, about social data. So for social data, because we at Chingari, I work on it a lot, I think about it a lot. Obviously, let's say take an example of Instagram, right? So we are all very frustrated. I don't know about you guys, but I've seen this common sentiment that the recommendation engine is not in our control. It's addictive, and what can we do? Like, we have been using Instagram for 6 years, so our friends are there, so we have to do this, but it's addictive. Like, we don't like that nature. So what are the alternative? Really, there's no alternative as of now, because data is being kept in a central server. It's not with you. You can't go anywhere without leaving a part of your data behind. But imagine a use case that all the interactions, all the likes, all the social interactions, friends, follow, social graph is with you, in your control. So what can happen? A second builder can come in and say, hey, what I am building is a UI with different recommendation algorithms which you can choose. And hence now you have different UIs or different recommendation algorithms which you can go to and basically interact with it, and basically not lose any data, while maintaining the integrity of yourself, that hey, I will see what I want to see. This is my data. You can't control my behavior based on my data. So that is something, with respect to social data, that how you can basically move from one social media to other just because you don't like XYZ feature or recommendation algorithms. And that power is not with us right now, but it needs to be with us. Okay, moving forward. Obviously, now fourth is identity management. Now, because on chain, obviously, it's all addresses, right? And really, you can't pinpoint that, okay, this address belongs to ABC person. So how do you really manage a reputation that, okay, if this wallet is asking me for a loan, or if this wallet is saying that, hey, I will contribute in your ecosystem by, building a protocol or by building a feature. So how do you really judge them without meeting them, without meeting face to face? So that is what the problem of identity management is, that who is this person? What is their capability? And I've put it some of the examples of how that can be solved. Obviously, one is a recent phenomenon, or basically recent feature of this L1 blockchain that has come out, which is soulbound NFTs. Soulbound NFTs, basically, which cannot be transferred between P2P. It can't be transferred. So soulbound NFTs can be issued every time you pay back a loan. So let's say you took a loan of 1 million and you paid it back 1.2 million, let's say, whatever with the interest it was. So now the company who lended you, if they give you this, this badge or this NFT, which portrays that, hey, this guy took a loan from me and, paid it back. So that is your reputation. Similarly, there are popes. So popes is is already established, company protocol, whatever you want to call it, but it basically gives out badges for attending hackathons, for attending events. So consider, meetup.com gives you a digital badge every time you attend a workshop or every time you attend a meetup. Now, on chain, anyone can come or see, or if you give access to them, depending on whether the chain you are interacting on is private or public, people can come in and see that, hey, XYZ person actually attended ETH Global or attended XYZ hackathon. That again brings in the credibility that, okay, I can trust this person, right? And obviously, a big part of identity management is social graph. That, okay, this ABC person is in touch with XYZ person. XYZ person has this reputation, so I can leverage or arbitrage on that. That, okay, if this guy is attached to this, probably this will be a good guy too. So that is how we need to solve for identity management, because if blockchain is going to be the future, and if we don't want to depend on the KYC, then it's best to figure out that, okay, how can we make these blockchain interactions a digital certificate of sorts, so that others can verify what this person is up to and has been up to. Third is composability. Third, I don't know what number is this, probably 7th, 8th, I don't know. So next is obviously composability. So just I want to give a small example of the meme culture. So composability, if you want to understand, consider it like meme generation. So if you see memes, why memes sometimes get hard to understand, and that's the reason why blockchain ecosystem can also get hard to understand, is because memes are built on top of each other. There'll be one meme, then they'll connect that one meme to some situation, then that situation and meme will turn into another meme, and someone will use that to basically convert into a third situation and make it funny. And hence, with this evolution, some people lose track that, okay, I don't understand the first meme itself or the second meme itself, hence I don't understand the third meme or the basically whatever has built on top of it, and it goes like, hey, why is it funny? So that is what composability is. That is taking a base, building on top, and then some other person can come in and again use that and build on top, and so on. And that's why really blockchain ecosystem gets complicated, because people have been building on top, and in a very dirty manner, I would say, because it's a fairly new ecosystem. So there's not much documentation. People are just going haywire, writing whatever shit code, and it gets hard to understand really. So that's a little bit on composability. But what is the use case of composability is obviously one is permissionless protocol access. So let's talk about a use case of Web2 company. So let's say I want to interact with Zomato. Let's say I want to use Zomato API to let's say order food. So now it's up to really Zomato to provide me that access, provide that rate limiting, that okay, you can't use this API 20 times in a day or whatever, or if whenever you use this API you have to give me this XYZ. So why should that be the case? Why can't the service be free to use or open to use without any API access or gated access? So that is what these protocols provide, that you can go to any protocol and check out their functions and just start using it in your application. No need for asking that, okay, should I use this, can I take permission? You'd like a contract, you use it. So that's what permissionless protocol access is. Obviously the contracts are open source. That's why we are building so fast, we are moving so fast in this ecosystem, because it's not one company knowledge that is there. It's actually multiple people coming together, figuring out that, okay, you have built this. It's more of a culture that, okay, why do I want to reinvent the wheel? You have already built this, I'll just take this and use it to my use case or tweak it to my use case. And third is obviously see, when like Gnana touch on this nature of transactions being sequential, right? So you but what you can do is basically, let's say you have to you have some Ethereum token and you want to buy an NFT and collateralize that NFT in a single transaction. So why I say single transaction is basically, right now the ecosystem is complicated. You have to do multiple transactions to achieve one use case. So what you can think of is try playing around with this blockchain ecosystem and see that, okay, if I have to accomplish this one task, then I had to do 3 different transactions. So can I make a product which really doesn't force user to go to 3 different protocols and then achieve the use case? Can I club it down to single transaction, that it's up to the machine, it's a machine to machine interaction that happens, but for the user it's a single transaction, rather than going through multiple protocols and then achieving a use case, right? So that is a little bit on how you, which is really distributed all over the place. If that makes sense. I mean, it can be difficult to grasp. I think I probably didn't frame it better, but yeah, moving forward. So this arts and culture is basically a use case. What I have written here is how really Web3 is affecting, or how Web3 can help professions or forms of professions which can be difficult to monetize and has a hard way forward. Because if you take a use case of a musician or a book writer, then it's not easy for them to really get to that level and earn money. Because if you make, let's say I publish a book, then I have to get a reputed author which will get me distribution. If I'm a musician, I have to find a like a music production house who will help me with again the distribution and getting the royalty and all. And if we get into the nitty-gritties and understand this ecosystem of arts and culture, they, these people are at a very, very bad drawback. They don't get royalties. They are on mercy of these publication houses. It's very bad for them, believe me. So what you can do here is basically remove this middleman of publishers and allow the fans or basically people to directly invest in these art forms, and basically maybe do crowdfunding. So that is what I want to touch on, that okay, because there's an inherent code structure, the code is immutable. So you can't play around with royalty structure. If it's set in the beginning that okay, writer will get 10% every time a book is sold, then the writer will get 10% every time the book is sold. Right now, that is not the case. Publishing house really butchers these people. So that is where I would urge you to think that, okay, how can we, make life better for these people who have or find tough to monetize their craft, which is obviously music writers, handicraft, people, and graphic designers, etc. Lastly, I think second lastly, I just have one slide pending. I think we are running overtime. So just talking about a little bit about token economy. So let's stop thinking about protocols, composability, privacy, everything, right? Let's think that okay, at core, what is this token, or basically a cryptocurrency, if you want to call it, is unlocking for the startup economy or basically builders, right? So how I would put it is, one, discounted cash burn. So let's say you start an Uber today. So if you start an Uber today, Uber, what they did, they gave out a lot of free rides, and they actually burned money on that. But instead of giving out free rides, if you give out token as a, or basically token as a reward every time you book a ride, to incentivize that behavior. Right now we are talking about most cash burn happens when you want to incentivize your audience into a particular behavior. And that is what this token can help us achieve, because we can incentivize them by giving this token. And that's where wealth distribution comes into picture. So that is one. Second is rightful reward distribution. So if you look at maybe Instagram or Snapchat or Roblox, so there's a lot of open source contribution that happens there. Filters are made in a open source way. Anyone can come in, make a filter and submit it. On Roblox, games are built in this fashion. But really, the people who are building these applications are on the mercy of these Instagram or companies, that okay, they will decide that okay, what money I should get, or it can be a fixed money. But it doesn't really depend on that okay, how is your application being used. So in these protocols you can embed these rules that okay, if XYZ filter gets used 10 times, every time, every 10th time this filter get used, the creator gets XYZ token or XYZ amount of token. So that is how token economy really helps, and these smart contracts really help in basically reward distribution and wealth management. And last is obviously decentralized finance. So most things are covered in decentralized finance, but obviously there are many innovations pending. It will be naive of me to say that most of the things are being done or completed in decentralized finance. But one of the use cases that I feel is pending is really of group buying and family, or basically family coordination. So if I take an example, can there be a FamPay for crypto? Because moving forward, every kid, every household, soon people will start using these crypto currencies and interacting with protocols. But you necessarily don't want your kids to engage with certain protocols or connect their wallet to certain protocols. So can you have access to wallets that okay, every time my kid uses this protocol, I should be notified before the transaction is sent through. So all those cases I think are still pending, are yet to build on. But yeah, I would end it here in lieu of time. That these are the more or less my thoughts around use cases that we can build for and use this technology for. Cool. I think.
All right.
That's
So, yeah, that's all from your side.
I don't know how to stop sharing my screen. Give me a second.
I think you have to take the cursor at the top.
Yeah, there would be some stop button or leave button, Anushank.
Okay. Never mind. You can maybe continue. I'll continue to figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go.
All right. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for the insightful session. Did you? Okay. Anyway, yes. Thank you so much for the insightful session. Unfortunately, Gnana Lakshmi had to leave early due to some commitment. Thank you, Anushank, for the very insightful session. And I'm sure our attendees have had a better understanding of the Web3 ecosystem here. Now, if we were to go back to the question which was asked by Gnana Lakshmi in the beginning, for the 1 to 5 rating, I'm sure most of them would rate a 5 now. So this was very insightful for everyone. So next up, we do have a few questions for you, Anushank. From some of the attendees have sent me a personal message here, and some of the questions are from our community. So
Anushank, do you have a few minutes to take a few questions?
Okay, 1 second. I think you have rejoined.
Yeah.
All right. So we hear a lot about decentralized systems being trustless, and this word trustless is being used a lot these days. So can you throw some light on what it means and how it's beneficial for systems here?
Sure. Trustless means let's talk about in Web 2 versus Web 3 terms. So in Web 2, what trust is that, okay, you trust Facebook to whenever you come on Facebook application, that they will serve you the content, or they will basically allow you to message or text, or basically control your access to different features, different people, right? But let's and I'm taking a complex example. It would be easier to just talk about in token firm or basically money terms, but let's talk about this, right? The social part. And let's say now on Web3 system, so have you, obviously everyone has heard that on Twitter, Twitter blocks people for putting absurd tweets. That is a use case that is there. So this is a problem, that okay, who gave Twitter the authority to basically block my account or block the access of my account to a certain person? Now that is the problem. Now in Web3 terms, there's really no code that is behind the curtain which actually empowers protocols to take decisions on their own. It is what it is in the code. If code, it is written that okay, anyone can talk to anyone, and that is how the protocol was established. It is immutable. No one can come and say that, hey, ABC, you can't talk to XYZ, because it is written in code which is immutable. So I would frame it like that. That's where trust comes in, that okay, if that makes sense. I can clarify further if that doesn't make sense.
I think that answers it sufficiently. So we have another question. So you mentioned wrap tokens. So a question here is, do the wrap tokens serve the same utility as the actual token?
Yes, the only problem with wrap token is that the ecosystem becomes a less basically smaller when we talk about wrap tokens, because tokens, when we talk about let's say native tokens, then all the protocols that are built on that product, which is basically blockchain, accept those tokens. But because wrap token is a service on a blockchain, so now it is really the responsibility lies on the provider of the wrap token to build an ecosystem, that they will go to XYZ ABC protocol and say that, hey, can you use my wrap token to support your economy or your product? So that is what in the primary difference is, that wrap token really basically shortens the ecosystem or make the ecosystem smaller, and depends on the wrap token service provider to make that ecosystem grow, I would say.
Okay, so wrapped ETH is issued by Ethereum itself, as you're saying.
Wrapped ETH is a protocol. So like I said, because of protocol being open source and permissionless access, so really I can spin off a company today and use that protocol of converting ETH to wrapped ETH in my service itself. So converting ETH to wrapped ETH is a protocol that has been provided by Ethereum service or Ethereum Foundation, but it can be used as a product really by anyone.
Okay, understood. So just one last, I think we'll take one last question here. So we were discussing about how decentralized networks have public ledgers here. So does that imply that currencies like Monero, which have a private ledger, so are they less decentralized, or are they not as decentralized as other protocols?
Yes, private blockchains are less decentralized because the access to write and read data on that chain is permissioned. That means you have to basically get yourself authorized in some way or the other to become a participant in that ecosystem, and that inherently, because now there's a barrier to become the part, so it inherently becomes a less decentralized, because now they are managing that, who can come in and write and read data on my chain, rather than Ethereum and other being open source and anyone can come in and join. So yeah, it becomes less decentralized, I would say.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much for answering the question. That was indeed a very interesting session. So a lot of valuable takeaways for our participants. So I would like to thank everyone for joining this workshop and making knowledge sharing so fun and exciting. Now, it goes without saying the workshop would not have been possible without Gnana, Lakshmi, Anushank, and the Chingari team, of course. So before signing off, just a quick word. We have lined up 4 hackathons leading to our main one at the conference, which is in January. So which is a great platform for you guys to implement what you have learned in our workshops. So registration for IBC Hack 1 are filling fast. So make sure you register before the slots run out. So we promise an exciting environment. There's top line mentors, the judging panel. So I'm sharing the link. The link is in the chat box here. You can register there. And you can also go to our Discord channel where you can connect with our mentors and our community, share ideas, and you can follow us on our social channels for regular updates. That's all from my side. Thank you so much for being a part.